I've been a little bit curious because sometimes when I'll make my stock recipe, some days it's a little more, the dough is a little more light and airy than others, even though I'm doing the exact same thing. Now, I know part of that is because, when you make a dough ball, you've got a window where you can bake it and it's good. Probably, 1 hour, hour and a half, maybe at the most. And of course, if you bake the pie towards the end of that window when it's been rising longer, the crust is going to be more airy and lightweight than if you do it earlier in that window. But even then, it seems like some days my crust is a little more dense than others. And so I'm hypothesizing that it's some days I'm over-kneading it just a little bit. And so for today's experiment, I'm going to make 2 dough balls. One I'm going to knead very lightly, and then the other I'm going to over-knead a lot, and just see the difference. Let's get started. I mixed up the ingredients 45 minutes ago in my KitchenAid. I mix it up till it looks like this, like a ball, but not super kneaded, I do the rest by hand. So make KitchenAid, let it rest for 45 minutes at room temperature. Now I'm going to make 2 dough balls, one of which I'm going to under-knead just a little bit, and then the other one I'm going to over-knead. When I'm kneading these, all I'm doing is like folding it over and trapping air while making a ball out of it. Like that. So this is going to be my very lightly kneaded one. You take a close up, it's pretty smooth on top. Now, I don't know what the right way is, honestly. I'm self-taught here, but I've always kind of, maybe I read it somewhere, but I always kind of assumed that when you start to see the dough on the outside like stretch and break, then it's over-kneaded. So I'm going to keep kneading this until I start to see the dough stretch and break. Here it is, it's starting to stretch and break. It's breaking more. Let's see if the camera can pick it up. You see how that dough is it's not smooth? That's because the dough is being stretched so much, it's just splitting like that. I'm going to give it a couple more turnovers here. Wow, this is getting really tough. Yeah, that's been kneaded a lot. It's just not as smooth on top. You can see that because it keeps cracking. And for those of you who don't know, the whole purpose of kneading is to make the dough stronger, right? So when you mix it together lightly, you have these glute strands that are loosely together like this. And so if you don't knead it, they're going to fall apart easy, okay? The dough won't be strong. So when you knead it, you're kind of knotting these up like that and makes them stronger. But if you over-knead them, it just gets too knotty and too tough and too dense. So you've got to find a happy medium spot. But here, look at the two. You can side by side. You can kind of tell. Whoops. See the difference? How smooth this one is compared to this one. Okay, we'll see. I'm gonna do this just the same day. Use my same day recipe today. So I'm gonna check back in like 3 hours, and we'll see how they're doing. All right, I'm back. So both of the balls look about the same. This is the one that was over-kneaded. This is the one that was good, or maybe a tiny bit under-kneaded. They look very similar, so let's just see how they perform. I'll start with the regular one first. I just checked the oven. We're at 615 degrees, so we are good to go. All right, I'm gonna check back in about 4.5 minutes. It's been just barely over 4 minutes, and I think it is about done. Let's see. Yeah. Looks pretty good there. Okay, I'm gonna let the oven load back up, and then we'll make the other one. All right, I'm excited to see how this is gonna be different. Looks good. I can totally tell it's not as airy as the other one. At least it doesn't seem like it at this point. It's not horrible though. It actually, I don't know if you can see how it's like really thin right here in certain spots, like right there. See that? That's not typical for my pizza dough. Another thin spot right there. Yeah, it's just it's not as strong. I was expecting it to kind of be more dense and not stretch out as well, but it's stretching fine. It's just not as strong. Like there's these big spots where it's about to tear. We're at 611 degrees. Time to put it in. I'll check back in about 4 minutes. It's been about 4 minutes and it's looking pretty good through the window. Let's check it out. Huh. Not bad. I'm gonna put the first one back in for just 1 minute to heat up, and then we'll compare the two. All right, this one on the left is the one with the over-kneaded dough. This is the regular one. I don't know how you can really tell, how much you can tell from the video, but basically this rim on the over-kneaded dough looks more uniform, whereas the one on the right has a lot more bubbles to it, some character to it. When I press down, I can tell this is pretty airy. This actually feels pretty airy also. It's just not quite as big. You're gonna notice that this one with the over-kneaded dough is a little bit oblong. It wasn't like that on my peel. I mentioned earlier how the dough was like so thin and not as strong that the pizza just kind of collapsed when I slid it onto the pan. I'm gonna cut them up and see how they compare. Actually looks pretty similar. Look, this is the regular one. This is the over-kneaded one right here. Looks about the same. Let's give it the taste test. And when I say it looks about the same, I mean like the air bubbles inside are about the same consistency. Here's another shot. See, very similar. And they taste the exact same, like they should. You know, they made the exact same recipe, fermented for the same time and everything. So here's what I've learned. Having the proper kneading is the best way. You know, you do have a little bit airier rim, a more puffy rim, a little more character to it. However, over-kneading it isn't the worst thing in the world. I didn't know it was going to be this good. It's just a little bit weaker dough, and the rim's not quite as bubbly. Other than that, though, it's good. It's not that big of a deal. So I can rest assured I don't have to be worried when I think I over-kneaded my dough balls a little bit. So that's what I learned. You guys out there, I know some of you are really good at baking and making pizza. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments. Thanks. Hey, I just wanted to make one more observation. I'm sitting here stuffing my face with my pizza, and the dough that was kneaded properly is much more firm than that was not. So it's no surprise. I pointed out how weak and thin that was in certain parts. So again, it's still not the worst thing in the world, still tastes really good. It's just not ideal like this. Thanks.